Signore e signori, buonasera. Welcome to New York University, Casa Italiana, Zerilli-Marimò, for what for us it's a fundamental, fantastic and innovative evening. Tonight we launch a new series, a video series, entitled Italian Fashion from A to Z, curated, conceived and written by Grazia D'Annunzio. Please do. I'm going to give him a little more formal presentation of Grazia immediately after we see one of the videos that she prepared for us with our film. And so I'm going to introduce her more formally, and then we're going to have time for a few questions. The program here in the auditorium is going to be rather brief because you will see that the video is limited in time. It was an editorial decision for all the videos. Then there's going to be a short conversation. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. And then we're going to move upstairs and there's going to be a celebration. We're going to have a drink, something to eat. We want this to be a big party for our series, Italian Fashion from A to Z, and especially to celebrate Grazia. Stay with us and now be ready for the first publicly seen episode of Italian Fashion. So before I call Grazia for the applause she deserves, I want to recognize some people in the audience. We have here the Consul General of Italy, and despite the fact that he's not new to New York, Fabrizio Di Michele, it's one of the the second time, I believe, that you're able to come to the Casa because of our restriction. You and your wife, you're always welcome here. There is always a place for you, and your presence here is the presence of the Italian Republic, and we're very grateful for it. And we have the chair of the board of Casa Italiana, so he's our boss, that some of you know in his other incarnation, that is Magazzino Italian Art, and is Giorgio Spano. Please welcome all with an applause. And then, staying within the world, the realm of fashion, we have the fortune to have with us here Valerie Steele, who is the director of the museum at the Fashion Institute of Technology. And she has graced our stage at least a couple of times, and we hope to get her back at some point. And you're all very welcome. Now, I want to say just a few words about Grazia. Many of you know her because, as you know, she established here the series Addressing Style, where she brought designers, fashion journalists, photographers, architects, dancers, all sorts of people that have to do in some way with the Italian concept of style, elegance, and beauty in the broader sense of the word. So you know how good an interviewer she is. And a good interviewer is somebody that is able to extract from her guest, the best without appearing too much herself. And Grazia, who has an explosive personality, when she interviews, her professionality comes across from that. Now, Grazia has a very classical formation, ancient languages, and she applies the same rigor in the research that she applied to the discipline she studied as a student at the University of Pavia to fashion. So when I started thinking about things we could do while we were closed during the pandemic, the idea of an encyclopedia or a dictionary of fashion was one of the things that was going into my mind, also because of the conversations I had regularly with Grazia. And as soon as she decided to accept this enterprise, the research started, and it was a huge enterprise, also because libraries were not always available, but she manages to find all the things that she needed to find, and in collaboration with our friends of Auen Cinema that you now see actually making a video about this evening, Valerio, Isaac, and Ruben, we started the recording of this series. One small clarification before we proceed. The series is not available now. It's going to be released one episode per week every Tuesday, starting tomorrow. So tomorrow it's not going to be this one, it's going to be a new one, the W, and then we can ask Grazia what it is about. But just the idea that we're going to release it as we do with our other series, Parole Parole, weekly, from now probably until March, I believe it's going to be the whole thing. So I'm asking you a big favor. Then I'm going to offer you a glass of wine and something to eat in exchange for the favor. But I'm asking all of you, as soon as you see, and we are going to send an email and we're going to publish in our social media, that the first episode is out, please share. Let people know that there is this resource that is coming from New York University, Casa Italiana, that is available freely to everybody. And it's going to be fun, but it's also informative, because Grazia contextualizes fashion within all the rest that happens in a country and in a world. So this is the favor I'm asking you. Let people know that this is happening and this is going to be available, and it's going to be fun and at the same time useful. So without further ado, I would like to ask you to welcome a person that for generosity, warmth, explosion of ideas is absolutely unique. Please welcome Grazia D'Annunzio.
Thank you all of you for being here in this awful weather. Thank you, Stefano, for this, wonderful introduction. Thank you to Casa Italiana for letting me talking about fashion in a kind of serious and not frivolous way. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Grazie mille. So Grazia, maybe...
Can you hear me? Yes,
yeah?
yes.
Maybe we want to say something about how the idea was born and what were your expectations when you started and whether...
Well, everything was born, let's say, during the pandemic. I was in Italy, and I was in Italy because I'm teaching at University of Milan, and I was, let's say, wonderfully trapped there. And I used to talk to Stefano on a kind of weekly basis, and because I love Casa and we have many projects together, and also Stefano helped me hosting the program that is called Dressing Style. And so we started talking about something that we could eventually do during this very difficult time. And I came up with this idea of a dictionary of fashion, thinking that it would be something easy to do, and it was not, but it doesn't matter. And he immediately agreed. So from that moment on, we changed at least 10 times, because at the beginning, I was thinking, and we were thinking of doing something very ambitious, as like an encyclopedia of fashion. So I started searching every letter. So I started say, okay, A for Armani, Albini, and other designers that we have under the letter A. And I started my photo search and my text search, and then Stefano said to me, but you know what? By the way, yes, it's fine, but the video series, each episode has to be at least, maximum length is going to be 15, 18 minutes. So I said to myself, this is not possible to condense in 15 minutes, 5, 6, even 10, sometimes you have 10 designers in one letter. So I decided to do a very personal dictionary. I love dictionary myself. I like dictionaries because I do. So, but it was difficult because, okay, A is okay, but what about X? What about W? What about Q? You don't have any Italian designers with the Q letters. So I spoke with Stefano, and I said, why don't if I go with a letter that is linked to an adjective, which is linked to a designer, how does it sound? And he said, go for it. So I did the list, and of course, some of the letters that you will, find are quite simple, like A, as in A plus, Armani. But W, which is going to be released tomorrow, and please check it, is not, W stands for the 5 W's of fashion, which means when and where did Italian fashion start, who is considered the father of Italian fashion. So that was also interesting for me, and I hope for the viewers, to understand not only a single designer, but be embraced by the rich history of Italian fashion. And in this series, in fact, you're going to see, all together, the history of our rich fashion from the beginning of the 20th century up to now. Because the letter P, for instance, is not Prada. Prada is going to be not in another letter, and it's going to come soon. But P is going to stay, for instance, for pioneers. And in that letter, we will discuss about the great designers of the early 20th century, like Mariano Fortuny, Taillat, who invented the overall, people that you don't know anything about, but they are absolutely fascinating. The aim of this series is not just giving you what you know already or what you would like to know. Yes, Gucci is there, Armani is there, Prada is there, Ferragamo is there, Fendi is there, Dolce is there. Every big names are there. But also the names that you forgot, you never heard of, but they were absolutely important in shaping our fashion cultural identity.
Grazie mille. And I just want to emphasize the fact that we call it a dictionary. And the dictionary, one thinks it's a sort of authoritative source in and of itself, very objective. And it is, because Grazia, we know her sympathy, I mean, at least I know. And she's very careful in not letting her own personal opinion of designer influence the way in which she presents it. But at the same time, it remains a series that is very subjective. It's Italian fashion from A to C by Grazia D'Annunzio. So you had to make choices, Grazia.
Yes.
And one of the choices, example, was the idea of the letter. It's not one letter, one designer, because it just didn't happen that way. And I love the creative way in which Grazia went around the missing letters or the letters that had too many people and found very original solutions. In which way this is subjective in the sense that reflects you? Because, again, there is a part of objectivity in the way in which you present them, but there is also your personality in the choices, for example.
Yeah, you know what, I said to myself, I thought primarily about students. And then second, about people who are interested in fashion. So especially students, what students are expecting from this series. They are expecting some clarity, some, something that has to be precise and coherent. So I did it thinking of what a student would eventually learn from this. So, for instance, Armani is a little recollection of the Armani history. I like the historical background. I'm not an historian, but I deeply think that if you don't know the past, you don't understand it, then think about the future and the present, especially the present. So, for instance, yesterday we were here because we were, actually filming a new series, and one of the last one that we did was Gucci. And Gucci was quite rich and long. Gucci started in 1920, so yes, it's interesting to understand, and you're going to eventually see it in December, Gucci. Please check it. You're going to see the history of the brand, and especially what Alessandro Michele, who's the current designer, is doing. But if you don't know what the brand did, the history of the brand, you don't understand what he's doing now and the richness of what he's bringing into the brand.
Very good. We also have room for questions that you might have, curiosities. You only see one installment, yes?
Yes.
Do you all get a sense of the personality of Armani? What are his quirks? What are his unusual beliefs?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a very interesting question. Thank you. First of all, Christian Dior was extremely superstitious. So this is why in the exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum, they devoted a section about his practices and the sciences and everything else. I didn't want to give you any I try to be neutral. I try to disappear in this series. I try to give you a very simple and, difficult, because it was difficult to put everything together, description of a group of designers or a single designers without making any personal comments. The first most important thing because this is for the students don't need to have any personal idea unless they know first what we are talking about. So this is what we are talking about. And then eventually we can discuss.
But I feel I don't know Armani's personality.
You don't need to know Armani's personality. I'm sorry. Yeah, but this series is not Armani personality. It's about Armani style. It's different.
Yeah, I just want to emphasize this, and also the time limits. You know, it's like
Yes.
in 10 minutes.
You know what?
you
It's
have to
not.
summarize.
Otherwise, I would eventually ask Giorgio to sit down and talk about the weather, what he likes. But this is not. This is and this is a wonderful take. It's a different take. This is not about personality. You know, designers' personality. This is about the designers, what they did, what they're famous for, what they have to be remembered for, and that's it. I mean, personality is something different. You can talk about them when you know what they already did. So it's a step forward.
Very good. Other questions? Yes.
I found that even though I know a lot about Mr. Armani, that I learned something from your presentation
thank you.
tonight. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I'm wondering, were the Italian companies, the houses, Gucci or Armani, were they helpful to you, or are you doing it without them?
I did everything without them. I did everything without them because I wanted to be extremely independent. I didn't want them to control anything of my work, anything of the process. It was me, my little knowledge. I used to work for Vogue and Condé Nast for almost 40 years. So I think I know a little bit, and I wanted to be strongly independent. So no, thank you.
And
thank you for the
I
question.
have to say that as Casa Italiana behind this project, we really wanted to honor Grazia's independence of thought, and therefore the resources were only ours, and we didn't look or seek any form of sponsorship from anybody. Also because you understand it would become very difficult in a project that is choral, that involves so many people. You ask one and not the other, and then that one has more space. No, it's not something into which we wanted to venture. So it's an independent project. It's an academic project conceived for students and anybody else who is interested in Italian fashion. But it has really this mark of originality that comes from Grazia, of objectivity and total independence. We admire these designers, otherwise they wouldn't be there. But at the same time, we admire them.
I love them all, and
Yeah.
I know most of them. But I didn't want to have them involved. I mean, I rather send them, the link when the episode is going to be out, and see if they can enjoy it or not. And that's it. That's all.
Valerie.
I was also very pleased by how beautiful the look of it was. And I wonder, how did you think of it so that you're on the stool like that? You're just sitting there, there's a picture in the background. How did you come up with that mise-en-scene and that approach?
Thank
you, Valerie.
Yes. Okay, the series had a very long way through. First of all, we had the idea of doing the series from remote. And by the way, I have to thank all the guys from Owen's Film, especially Isaac, the guy here. Come, stand up. Ruben, Valerio, Eleonora, Anya, everybody, but especially Isaac. The guy here was my guardian angel. And he also was so good in keeping me calm, which is all the way through. So a big applause to him.
Yes. I just want to say something about our film. You see them here helping us with recording our events. They're real directors, they're real filmmakers.
Yes.
They have 2 big films that they've already produced, and one is coming up.
Soon, in
soon.
Florence, right?
So we have the
It's a
fortune.
documentary. Come. No, come on. Come on.
We have the fortune that between one feature project, one documentary project, and the other, they have some time to dedicate to us.
Yes, we have a feature documentary entitled Stonebreakers. It's about the fights over monuments that took place here in the United States, especially in 2020 and 2021. It's going to be premiering at Festival dei Popoli in Florence, probably November 12th. Might be November 11th, but we'll let you know. And Casa has been a generous supporter of that project and a lot of our other endeavors. So thank you again, Stefano and Grazia.
Yeah.
Special night. It's been a pleasure.
Grazie mille,
Grazie.
Isaac. E adesso la risposta alla Valerie dobbiamo dare.
Yes. So Isaac is the one who said to me, no, we're going to do that from remote. So he said to me, you have to, have a microphone, and I'm going to film you. And back then, I was in Italy during the pandemic. So we found a spot in my place where, it was nice and we started recording the letter W that was recorded at least 5 different times.
In different venues.
Then we didn't like it, and we said, well, no, you know what, now maybe let's do that in New York. So we did it in New York, and we started thinking maybe we're going to rent a studio. And then I said, well, why don't you come to my place? And he said, yes. So they came to my place, and we set up the set, and I have a lovely corset chair that was actually nice as the symbol of this, series, and we started filming there. And then we look at the letter W, always the letter W, that I know it by heart. And the letter, and we didn't like it because my place is very cluttered, and
Her place is beautiful.
no, but that's no, not that. But it was too distracted. So we said, no, we have to find another place, a studio. So I said, let's go to a studio. So I came here. We have this brainstorming. I said, why do you have to, rent a studio? Maybe we can do that here. And of course, we thought to do everything in the library upstairs. The library was a big mess because it's a library, so it's full of books. And, so it was not clean, and plus we wanted to project the pictures. So, at the end, we came
Finally.
up with this wonderful idea to use this auditorium, which is a house for me, a home for me, because I've been here so many times, and it's nice. And so he found a very uncomfortable chair, and we started filming, and we did different batches. The difficulty of this series is because fashion is a living creature. The difficulties is to do everything and deliver it with hoping that everything is going to be fine. And because fashion is a living creature, nothing is fine. Everything is evolving. So sometimes we have to tweak, we have to add things. So hopefully until December we are fine.
And for me, it was a pleasure to witness all these phases and all these changes that we considered and we are very satisfied with the end result. We have to say.
Yes, we are very
So
happy.
it was worth
Yes.
it to do W 5 times, right?
Yes, yeah. At this point, I know it by heart. By the way, if you want to know what W is all about, that I told you already, tomorrow, check and enjoy, because it's going to be the beginning of Italian fashion from the 50s on. It's from the 50s up to the 70s, up to the rise of Armani, Versace, Ferré, which will be the subjects of new episodes.
So we are also, then we're going to go to you. The idea that how to promote this. Of course, you're going to do your job, you promised, because then I'm going to give you food and drinks. But
In exchange.
the idea how to promote it in the sense of, are we going to say in advance what people are going to find in that specific episode? Because it's not so self-explanatory or so self-evident like in Armani.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Another important thing, I'm not going to choose, I decided not to choose an alphabetical order. So Italian fashion from A to Z goes from A to Z, and it's 25 episodes. But we're not going to start from the letter A. In fact, tomorrow, which is the first, day of screening, we're going to start with the letter W. So it's going to be, a random thing, and so every week you're going to have a little surprise.
So in Grazia, nothing is random with Grazia. Even the decision of the scaletta, of the lineup, of when we're going to see what, it's not random. All the choices are balanced, providing maybe a designer that is more famous and that is well known to others that are less. So not to create clusters of interest that then drop. So nothing is random with Grazia.
No,
please.
Well, first of all, complimenti. When you told me a couple of years ago about the idea, I could not imagine this developing such a well-structured series.
Thank you, Luca.
And the greatly concise and educational, but also multi-layered. It can speak to a very large audience. And the editing is excellent. And actually, talking about editing, I was very curious to know what you have maybe a little bit of regret for having cut out, because it couldn't fit in the format, and maybe you're going to keep for a sequel.
Thank you. Luca is Luca Buvoli. He's a great artist, and he was part of the Venice Biennial art, festival in I think 2000 and 2007. And this is how I met him, and I interviewed him several times for Italian Vogue and Architectural Digest. Anyway, thank you, Luca. Thanks for being here. I wrote every episode. It took me probably a week and more than a week for each episode to be put together. So while I was writing, I already made schemes, and I already skimmed things, and I actually tried to. In the final editing, and Isaac helped me a lot. We sometimes cut a lot of things because I have the tendency of writing too much, because I wanted the students to know almost everything, and sometimes too many information are redundant. So I'm pleased with the finals, cut, and I don't have any regrets whatsoever.
Any other question?
In which way? I'm attached to any Vogue publishers.
Like Anna Wintour.
I worked for almost 40 years with the late Franca Sozzani, who was a wonderful, editor, and it was my mentor, and it was my boss. Working in Condé Nast, I, of course, had the pleasure of meeting Anna Wintour, but Italian Vogue was back then totally independent of other Vogue magazines. So we work in New York. I work in New York, but just for my Italian people and not with American. We never mingle.
And again, your thoughts about Andre.
Andre, well, I was a good friend of Andre. Andre came here at Casa. I interviewed him, and it was a wonderful, wonderful evening. Do you remember? Yes, it was a dear friend. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
So, and by the way, if you're interested in knowing more about the other installments of Grazia's presence here at the Casa, they're all in our video archive.
Yes.
So you can go to our website, multimedia, video, type in Grazia D'Annunzio, and you will have How many Grazia?
yeah,
Almeno una ventina. ormai.
probably 20.
About
You
20.
have to type addressing Grazia d'annunzio addressing style, and you're gonna see all the people that I interview. And I interview Valerie Steele, who's here with us tonight a couple of times. I interview Harold Koda, from former curator in chief of the Costume Institute of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I interview Andrew Bolton, who is the current chief curator of the Met, and I interview the late Andrea Leon. I interview the late Franca. I interview Simon Junan from Barnes in the 8 years. I interview Fabrizio Ferri, a photographer, a dear friend of mine. I interview Roberto Bolli, the dancer. I had, a nice group of people, and maybe you're gonna enjoy checking them. And don't miss, actually, I would like to see you back again here, if you can, on November 1st, in conversation. I'm gonna be in conversation with my dear friend, Sarah Martin. She's a professor of movie criticism at Parma University, and she is also a scholar of costumes and movies. So we're going to talk about costumes and movies, and costumes and TV series. So come, and we're going to have fun.
I mean, tell me the truth. Could I let Grazia enjoy her post-Vogue retirement? And no, you cannot let her in peace at home. I mean, we need to give her things to do.
Yeah.
And along with what we're giving you to do, I forgot to mention in the introduction, you just en passage, but you're teaching fashion journalism at the State University of
Yes.
Milan.
Yeah.
And it's like your new life. You
It's
went
my
from
new life,
journalist
yeah.
to professor. Tell us something about that.
But you know what? I used to be a teacher. Before becoming a journalist, I was a teacher for 6 years. And I always loved teaching. I mean, back then I taught Latin, Greek, and not very glamorous stuff. But I love I like the relationship that I can establish with the students. And at this point of my life, I said to myself, well, I learned so much. And my years in Condé Nast were amazing, fantastic. And I don't miss them, but I acknowledge them. So I said to myself, I should give back what I learned. And so I found this wonderful professor in Milan. Her name is Manuela Scarpellini, and she's a professor of contemporary history. And she was the founder of this master program at Università degli Studi di Milano, the State University of Milan, called Editoria, Comunicazione e Moda, Editorials, Communication, and Fashion. And it's a master degree program, and she asked me to jump in there and teach. And I did it, and I'm really happy. I teach every second semester. So next semester, this semester I'm here, next semester I'm going to be in Italy.
And I think I hope we raised your curiosity about the series, and I hope we can count on you as allies in promoting it, letting people know that this is happening, it's free, and it's for all of you. And I want to thank once again Grazia and invite you to join us upstairs for a drink and a bite. Thank you.